The ladies of The View had this to say about Hunter Biden in the probe. Let's watch.
In Orange, it's comparisons.
Well, the other thing is it's not really a sweetheart deal. I mean, he pled guilty to two misdemeanor tax violations, tax crimes, and he got probation for it. He paid the taxes back, yet he was still charged. And typically, when you pay the taxes back, you don't get charged.
Yeah.
The other
That's
thing
like
is
when you return the documents.
Yes, when you return
they don't
the documents,
charge you for that because you returned them.
Like Joe Biden.
So it was actually, in my view, a pretty zealous and robust charging document for the behavior.
How long was it going on? Did they say?
It was going on for 5 years, the
5
investigation,
years.
and that's all they are charging him with. They also gave him what is called a diversion program for the felony gun charge, and that is because he lied about his drug abuse when he applied for the permit. There are like millions of people that apply for permits and lie on their gun charges, and less than, I think, 1% of those people are ever charged under this felony statute. And so I would say it's the opposite of a plea, of this sort of, sweetheart deal. He's being held to account for what he did, and that's the only way our system of justice works. Everyone has to be treated equally, and he is being treated no differently than anyone else, just like Trump.
And another clip, I think that was more recent than this one, Sonny, says, is anyone talking about the addiction element of this? And is it fair to be, harping on this bad behavior when we're not sufficiently kind of crediting the fact that he was going through something very personal and difficult at the same time? So what do you make of that?
I mean, I think it is fair to harp on it, especially because his dad is the president and is very harsh in general on drug use, is a prohibitionist, is not someone who has supported
leniency,
making drugs legal or lenient whatsoever. So, why? And Sonny there is all like, oh yeah, they never go, harsh on it. Don't you favor gun control? Don't you want gun crimes enforced? This doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because I do think it is true that at the same time that Hunter Biden, it would be almost unbelievable if he didn't get some special treatment because he's the president of the United States, that it is also true that there was more focus and perhaps a selective prosecution of him because he is the son of the president of the United States, right? I think it is probably true that many, many people lie on their drug registration forms and never get caught or investigated because they are anonymous and who's going to check up on it. Hunter Biden so publicly having these issues with drug addiction is part of why it's so easy to tell that he lied on the form when he said that he was not under the influence of drugs.
It's not that the prosecutors are like routinely just overlooking this crime or something. It's just that there's not this much scrutiny on an individual usually. So I guess that's a double standard by virtue of him being a scion, a famous person's son. But also the point of the investigation, again, is to get to the bottom of the corruption, the potential currying of influence. That's what this whistleblower is alleging. Payments originating in China and Ukraine, et cetera. Like that's what we care about. So I guess I agree in some very abstract way that he did struggle with drug addiction, and I don't think drug addiction should be a crime anyway. And now, procuring a weapon if it doesn't sound like he put anyone at risk, but I don't, if it was, he shouldn't be on drugs and using a weapon. That's
or
not
discarding
something.
a weapon in a public trash can.
Right. Well, Hallie Biden did that.
Right. So now this conversation about nepotism and special treatment has bubbled over, partly because there was a new op-ed by Meghan McCain in the Daily Mail where she takes significant issue with it. It's titled, Mr. President, when will you realize that your Nepo baby scumbag son doesn't deserve to be an honored guest at the People's White House? You're spitting in the faces of Americans who pay taxes and earn an honest living. It's a bit of a wordy title. I'm sure she didn't pick it, but it's obviously a quote from her piece itself where she makes the case that he's needs to be treated more fairly, more equitably, in line with how other Americans are treated.
Well, go ahead. I think that's in line with what she said. I know her socially. We're friends. She said in the past, I just think she said this on Twitter when the whole Nepo babies discourse was happening. Like, my fellow Nepo babies, we just got to own this. We had advantages that other people didn't, and so don't complain about it. So I think she's well aware of her, status as a very significant, famous person's child and how that has helped her.
Yes, well, she's gotten quite a bit of pushback from folks who are pointing out the hypocrisy of her being a Nepo baby. You said that she's self-aware. But of course, ironically, she was a co-host of The View at one time, a position that some might argue she wouldn't ordinarily have gotten but for being John McCain's daughter. Mike Singleton tweeted at her, Meghan McCain calls Hunter Biden an elitist scumbag, the ultimate product of nepotism. Interesting coming from an elitist scumbag, the ultimate product of nepotism. That's obviously his opinion. Mehdi Hassan weighed in saying Meghan McCain is calling Hunter Biden a Nepo baby scumbag. You can't make this stuff up, and on and on and on. And of course,
why do they need to cover for Hunter Biden? Like, what are they doing? Why is this so important?
Well, that's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation. Is it covering for Hunter Biden to push back against Meghan McCain, who's decided to come out swinging against Hunter Biden? And moreover, in a different clip from The View of Sunny Hostin talking, she specifically raises this question of whether or not nepotism is an issue, including with Donald Trump and his children and his son-in-law. You know, is this really an issue of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden behaving particularly poorly, or is this a much broader problem of elites having different rules for elites? Donald Trump pardons his son-in-law's father, who was in jail for tax evasion and a number of other crimes. He appoints his son-in-law to basically bring peace in the Middle East, having That
was the one he was prosecuted by Chris Christie. And it's like Jared Kushner never forgave Chris Christie and torpedoed. Again, I think this is not to Trump's credit, the amount of influence that Jared Kushner had over the entire administration. But Christie was going to be up for a plum position in the Trump administration. Jared Kushner, for reasons of personal revenge, had that idea killed.
Right. So if you're rich and you marry the president's daughter, you can get a plum job and you can get your father out of jail. And if you are the president's daughter, there's been some accusations of her having met with President Xi and gotten these trademark copyright deals that she earned quite a bit of money from. The two of them are reported as having benefited in the millions of dollars from the Trump presidency as a consequence of not giving up businesses that they said they would give up with the Trump name. And
they're not supporting a further Trump bid because they got what they needed and they're done. They're like, no, don't put us under the limelight again. They don't want more scrutiny.
Right. So
they're saying we're done, we're out.
Look, I think that there is a really solid case. We talked about this in an earlier segment around Nancy Pelosi and insider trading and the Supreme Court justices who've been flown all around on private jets and then have the people who were their patrons on those trips come before them on the Supreme Court and get billion-dollar judgments in their favor. This is a real problem. Rich people are doing whatever they want to do flagrantly with no ethical boundaries on whatsoever. And I think it frankly diminishes everyone, Sunny Hostin, the people going after Meghan McCain, to frame this in a partisan way when this really is a top-down issue. Elites are gonna elite. This is what happens. They are going to, while your cousin or your aunt or your parent is rotting in jail, Jared Kushner, it was a miracle that he got convicted of anything to begin with, given the low conviction rates for white-collar crime. But then his son married well, and so he gets out of jail. You know, that is the two-tier justice system we really need to be concerned about. And I would love to hear Donald Trump, as he is presenting himself as the victim of a different kind of two-tier justice system, also advocating increasingly for people who don't have the benefit of the money, privilege, and representation that he has to defend himself from what he believes to be a political prosecution.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, really. I think the criminal justice system needs to be made more fair in general. I think we should enforce laws that we have, and if you don't want to enforce those laws, those are things that probably shouldn't be laws. I would just have fewer laws as a libertarian around all sorts of things, and not leave it because the ambiguity is where the double standard comes into play, right? Because you could charge someone, but there's this tremendous deference to the prosecutors and the justice system to decide based on it's easier to go after, we'll just talk about how the IRS agents pay far more attention to the low-level people who are easy to prosecute than the wealthy people who will, kick and scream and cry as they're being carted off. So make it simple and enforce what you're going to enforce, and that's the way to proceed.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But I wouldn't all this drug stuff. I think should be legal. So
all what Trump stuff?
The drug stuff.
Oh, yes. I think
actually RFK Jr. I saw the other day. Not to put him into every conversation we have, but I was surprised. I genuinely didn't know his thoughts on this. He said that, I liked this tweet, so I can find it again. So he was taking aim at Ron DeSantis. He said, maybe we should have done a whole segment on this. This is a tweet from RFK Jr. He says, DeSantis' opposition to marijuana decriminalization is wrong. I will decriminalize cannabis at the federal level. Current situation with contradictory state and federal laws is absurd. States should be able to decide without federal interference.
Yeah, that's a great
Perfect
tweet.
statement.
It's a great stance. It's worth noting that all left candidates support that. Bernie did, Marianne Williamson did, and Cornel West all do as well.
Sure, our libertarian candidates do as well, but not President Biden,
Not President Biden,
many
for
of the
sure.
Republicans running on the GOP side.
Absolutely.
Very, very sad. Get with the program, people. More Rising right after this.